Shall we?
Go on then.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next episode, the third episode of Grounded in Groundshot podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Vishal Gewali, who you know very well, but I'm super happy today because our guest today is one of the most special persons. Uh, he, can I call you one of my best friends?
You absolutely can call me anything you like, Michelle.
So Professor Chris Jackson, he is here in Kingston today, all the way from New Zealand. As you know, I love to do my interviews in person, so I was waiting for him to be here to release the third episode. So Professor Chris Jackson is a professor of oncology at the University of Otago, and he's the Deputy Dean of the Dundee School of Medicine and co-lead of the National Cancer Network, Clinical Network for Health New Zealand. And as he will tell you later on, and you'll get to know him more, he is also a fantastic uh, media person. He's an implementation scientist. I talk about things, he gets things done. So there is a big difference. And I have been inspired by him for a long time. And as you know, the whole philosophy of this podcast is to talk to people who I respect and who I believe are a positive force in oncology and medicine. And people that, even if I was not in oncology, or people, or even if they were not in oncology, I would still find them to be inspirational because of who they are. I value people for what they are as human beings more than what they have accomplished. So it's my big pleasure to be with Professor Jackson today, but you will soon realize that, he, he'll soon see why I'm such a big fan of him. Uh, and one more introduction I forgot. I call him Dai, and my Nepali audience will know how endearing the word Dai is. We refer our elder brother as Dai. So he is my Kiwi Dai from New Zealand, but he's not my first favorite Kiwi though. You are my second favorite Kiwi. So Chris, welcome to this podcast.
Well, thanks very much for having me. But no pressure, just a small amount of imposter syndrome going on there with the introduction. Thank you for that. Now, I think it's important to note that Bashar talks about his favourite Kiwi after the Stephen Colbert interview, where Stephen Colbert flew to New Zealand and was picked up by an Uber driver, and that Uber driver was our Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern. And so Bashar thinks that anytime you arrive in New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern turns up to pick you up. And this is normal because he's seen this on television. He's going to be very bitterly disappointed when he turns up to the airport and finds it's only me in the car.
No, it would be an honor to be picked up by you. I don't think you pick up too many people.
No. Because we only have 3 visitors a year to the country, it's sort of that way, by and large. New Zealand's a small place. We don't really discriminate it with
when people say that it's the penguins who come to pick you up at the airport, they're lying.
It's fairly accurate.
Okay.
Yeah. There's more sheep in New Zealand than there are humans.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Considerably.
Wow.
And some of those sheep think they're humans.
No, I have never been there, but it is one of my dream destinations to visit.
Yeah. I think we invited you one year, but then there was something called a global pandemic that got in the way of you turning up.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah, I thought, yeah.
We'll have to bring you back. Bring you back. Now we've got the virus under control.
I think we were talking about your podcast right before this, and I just realized it's a very small world. First, tell me, how did you know Hans?
Yeah, so I met Hans and Eva Eva I met through the Australasian Geo Trials group. The AGITG is a really great clinical trials cooperative group. I got involved in that through my background in clinical trials, but I got invited to their annual meeting and I got put on as one of the debaters in the annual comedy debate. And so me and Eva would do the annual comedy debate. And then one year, comedy debate, yeah. So it was always one of the lowlights of the annual dinner was this comedy debate, and we would debate all sorts of things. And usually New Zealand versus Australia or something like that, surgeons versus oncologists. And then also Eva invited me to do the talent quest, and so I had to sing some songs. And so I did a bunch of oncology comedy rock songs, including one of the original songs was a love song about the AGITG's relationship with NCIC, to the tune of U2's With or Without You, about the relationship with Australia and New Zealand and Canada, close from way back. And then after that, Eva thought, okay, well, I'll invite that goof on my podcast, and that's how I got to meet her and Hans.
I see. No, the podcast that we are talking about is called Oncology Journal Club, OJC. And no, I was asking about Hans because his mentee, became my mentee.
Oh, great.
Dr. Lorianne Tune.
Great.
You are going to meet her at the CSO meeting as well.
Yeah.
So she spent 6 weeks with us last year.
Mm.
Uh, and yeah, I know I have known Hans since that ASCO meeting where Hans, Eva, and we had dinner together. And I call Hans the most cheerful person in oncology. Like it's hard to meet him and not feel happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He came on sabbatical to it was Australia or New Zealand, but he was over in New Zealand for a little bit too.
I
Yeah,
see.
nice to spend some time with him.
And the audience will know that Chris actually is a fantastic host, like a game show host, as well as uh, he's amazing at music. Like he literally put the set on fire, so people had to call.
We did. Yeah, one
Yeah.
year we did have one of the candles at the table at AGITG got knocked over, and so the that collapsed. And also we also had someone requiring the Heimlich maneuver during one of the middle of the
Wow.
AGITG
Really?
dinners as well. Absolutely. So someone had to be that compromised.
And also the fact that he was the person that I called during my participation at Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Yeah.
So he was my go-to person for phone a friend. And when the host called him, he was at a bar having drinks
It's very unlikely.
on a random Saturday afternoon.
I think you probably just
It was not even evening.
I would have been doing the dishes and you would have heard glasses clinking in the background and you just assumed that it was a pub, Michelle. But you know, projection and all that, you know, really, it says a lot more about you than it does me. Oh, it definitely wasn't. It was not in a pub.
So Chris just gave a fantastic talk to Department of Oncology at Queen's right before we started recording this. And I realized that I had not heard Chris give a 1 hour lecture before, and there were so many nuggets for us to think about and learn from and get inspired from. So thanks a lot for doing that. But I wanted to touch on a couple of points that you mentioned. I was, and I guess it would be a continuation of what we started talking there. Nowadays, I get very troubled by the idea of what is right. And you touched at COVID, and even during the COVID pandemic, there was a lot of, and there still is ongoing debate about what was the right thing to do, what was not the right thing to do. And in medicine, the definition between right and wrong is sometimes blurred, and sometimes, and we, of course, data are data, but we don't always practice evidence-based medicine. People practice all sorts of fear-based medicine, litigation-based medicine.
Yeah.
And we feel very uncomfortable not doing things. We always try to err on the side of overdoing things. Something I refer to as just in case medicine, right? Like, oh, let's do a CT scan. Do you think there is some pretest probability that you would find something sinister? No, but just in case, right? Let's do that. Let's give you fourth line of treatment. Is it going to help me? No, we actually don't have any data that it improves survival, but just in case. So how can we fit this philosophy of just in case medicine with the philosophy of what is right and what is wrong? And I also asked you who decides to who gets to decide what is right, because during those COVID times, and especially even social media started to play as a judge of what is right. Social media started to, like Facebooks and Twitters and YouTube video, like these platforms, they started to tell us, okay, this is wrong, this is right, you can't post this, you can't post that. But there is also a genuine concern about actual misinformation out there that is killing people. There is misinformation that is killing people. So how, given all your expertise with working with the ministry, implementation scientists, but also as someone who goes on media and speaks with the public very often, how do we balance all of these?
I think one of the so for starters, what's right and what's wrong? Well, I think they're absolute concepts, what's right and what's wrong. And I think what we understand as scientists is that absolutes are rare. And I think one of the things that we lost was the ability to have a nuanced conversation and the ability to explore curiously. And I think what the misinformation crowd played on was uncertainties in science, and they amplified uncertainties as to say that because something's uncertain, it can't be true. And I think that we, on the pro-science side of things, reacted to that in a way that was unhelpful. And our reaction to that was to double down and become absolutist in response. And actually, that's the wrong way to approach it. The better way to approach it is to embrace uncertainty and acknowledge that actually just because things are uncertain doesn't mean they're wrong. Just because things are uncertain doesn't mean that you can't move ahead with them. You have to embrace imperfection and acknowledge the uncertainties that go along with that. And I think we lost a bit of that, and I hope that we are able to have a bit more reflection on that and perhaps learn from that. The other thing that I think we've lost in the age of 140 character conversations is the ability to disagree well. And it's if you disagree with someone, it must be because they're bad. But in actual fact, some of the people who I disagree with the most are the ones who I love the most. Because you can have a safe conversation, you can explore ideas, and I learn the most from the people who I disagree with the most, as long as your disagreements aren't based on assumptions about character. And so the starting position has to be, I respect your character, I respect your integrity, I respect your good faith position, and let's discuss. And then that comes down to a question of curiosity and integrity. You have to start from a position of curiosity and interested in why someone has an alternative perspective to you, genuine curiosity, and highlight to try and understand where the tensions in your positions are. And often it's not a question of fact. Often it's a question of value. And so do you value A or B? Or do you value autonomy, or do you value safety? Do you value, in medicine, do you value the idea of restoration and trial of something over the notion of avoiding possible toxicity? So these are trade-offs that we have all the time. Now, one of the beautiful things about being an oncologist is you can have values-based conversations with patients. And actually, the starting position in clinic for most of us is a beautiful position of trust. Patients trust us so much, it's wonderful when they come into clinic. And I think you anchor the conversation in values and start from that point of view. But you do that quite a lot too, right? How do you find it on? I'm going to ask you some questions now, Bush. So, you were one of the original and most prolific oncology tweeters. You must have found some of the conversations there got reductive quite quickly.
Yes. Yeah, like there is a lot of bad faith conversation that happens on social media. I think one strategy that helped me early on was I did not reply to bots. And nowadays, like there is a proliferation of AI bots. And in early days, it used to be easy to see who was bot and who was not. Nowadays, it's getting more and more difficult, but still you have the telltale signs.
John 126843859.
Yeah. And people without profile pictures and things like that. But the other one is when even from genuine people, humans who exist, I stopped engaging with people who I knew did not read what I wrote. For instance, I publish a paper, and then within 2 minutes, there is criticism. I'm like, it's a 6-page paper. There is no way you could have read it in 2 minutes of publication or 2 minutes of me posting it, and you responded to it, right? And the other one is, for example, once I published a paper that showed for immunotherapies, actually PFS is a bad surrogate, but for opposite reason. Usually PFS gains do not translate to OS gains, but for immunotherapy, you can have OS gains without seeing any PFS gains, right? So basically, our paper was saying that even if your PFS is negative, you should follow for OS because OS might be positive. So that might be like a very pro-industry paper that I have ever published. And I put it out there. And then the first 2 or 3 criticisms were that, oh yes, you always talk about PFS is bad. You don't know what means to, like those boilerplate criticisms that people do. I'm like, okay, you did not read this.
So people are reacting to what they think you're saying,
yes, exactly,
rather than to actually what you are
saying. Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's a common flaw in contemporary academic debate as well, isn't it? People respond to what they think you're saying.
Exactly.
So taking a moment to pause, but you can have that conversation more in person than you can have online.
Absolutely.
So it's harder to do online, isn't it?
Yes.
And it's also easier to be rude to someone online than it is to be rude to someone.
Exactly.
Have you had that experience in conferences where people have stood up and...
I had not as often, because unlike social media in a conference, especially when I have some good amount of time. Like sometimes they invite you to give a lecture for only 10 minutes, which is not enough time to make a case. But every time I have given a longer lecture, let's say 30 minutes or more, I have good enough time to make a case and persuade people. So people are not antagonistic, but they want to learn more. They are asking questions. They want to figure things out. And I like that approach because I have enough time and I'm there in person and I'm there to discuss with them. And I don't know, Chris, I don't think I come across to the audience as an asshole. Like I don't come across as a person who is, I don't know, arrogant or the audience cannot talk to. I always try to present myself as approachable, that anyone can come and talk to me.
So again, I would reflect on those values, Bish, and I would say that they are, for starters, your presentation style is always based in data first. And you let the data tell your story. The second thing of all there, which you've just highlighted, is the fundamental ingredient of respect. And that, when someone's engaging with you, you start from the position of thinking and assuming that they're asking you a question based on a position of fact, and it's a question around data interpretation or of that, rather than it being a bad faith question, right? And that's once you reply to you within 2 seconds of your post, that's a bad faith position.
Yeah, like that's the reason why I also love academic debates in terms of correspondences in journals, right? Like as you said, it's very easy to be nasty in social media, but you can't actually put that in writing and send it to a journal. If you are criticizing my article in a formal forum, you try to present your best self and you try to let the data speak instead of your opinion. So I have had some very interesting, like the most interesting, let's say, back and forth or a debate I have had have actually been in the pages of the journal.
Right.
Yeah. Please, I wanted to ask you, like you started as a medical oncologist. So I assume you wanted to become a clinician and you wanted to be an academician. What prompted you to, move into the implementation side of things, like work for the Ministry of Health and actually get things done? Because as academics, we are always about, we'll write these many papers, we'll apply for this grant, we'll apply for promotion, like those surrogate markers that the academia has created for us, versus you thinking, I need to change things at the very top. Like I need to change the roots.
Well, I think the thing about being a clinician, so I wanted to be a doctor from when I was very young. I don't know why, but I always did. I didn't actually know any doctors other than my family doctor, and I don't come from a long line of doctors at all. I'm the first doctor in my family line.
Wow.
2 of my aunts were nurses, but that's been the health experience. So not from a long line of medics at all, and certainly my tertiary education was the furthest any member of my family had previously. So relatively new area, but for me, the whole idea of medicine was one of service, and that notion of service was something that was a very strong value in my family, serving others, serving the community, strong value. And then when I was in medicine, I didn't actually know what I wanted to do in medicine for quite some time. It's such a wonderful field. There's anywhere I could have ended up. And I quite liked, I had some great mentors in cardiology, wanted to be a cardiologist for quite a long time. And then there was a paper that was published, which was PCI compared to thrombolysis, and PCI came out on top. And then when that paper came out, when I was a registrar, I was like, that means I'm going to be woken up at 6 o'clock in the morning for the rest of forever, coming in to do on my weekends that I'm not going to be a cardiologist anymore. And so it's all about the fact that I like sleeping. That ended up taking me into medical. And then
You're serious?
Seriously, that was like a really big turning point in my life. Was the fact that I didn't want to get woken up in the night. And the same reason for surgery is that I thought, I like doing surgery, I like doing procedures, it's great fun, but can I do this when I'm 50? I don't think I can. I think I would just not be a happy person. And so I took that longer view, and then ended up thinking, okay, fine. And then I thought about geriatrics because I quite like talking to old people. And then I had a really great mentor in palliative care. It was the best communicator I've ever worked with in my life. And such an inspiring individual. And then I thought, I want to be like him. And then I thought about doing pal care. Then he left. And then so I took a job in oncology whilst I was thinking about what I was going to do, and ended up loving the environment. And from there it was great. And then I found the key thing in oncology, which I hadn't experienced in other areas, was that longitudinal care that you got. You get to see your patients quite frequently, and the relationship that you had with the patient was just so wonderful. You really got to make a difference in their lives. And I remember one of my mentors, a guy called Professor David Perez. He helped me understand that I actually fundamentally at a core level understood what oncology was about when one of his patients died, and he described her to me as an oncologic success story. And I thought that he would have been really upset that this patient he'd looked after for 10 years had died. And he was like, no, not really. It was like, no, we gave her a really good life and she lived for 10 years longer. She was working till a month before she died. And all this function that she had, all these things that she got to do was great. And I went, yeah, I guess I get that. And I understood that actually death is not something to be feared. It's something that is a normal part of existence. And your job isn't to prevent death. Your job is to maintain life and maintain quality. And so I thought, yeah, I understand that. And so that really resonated with me, and the environment really resonated, and that worked. When it came from there, so I think when you're in the clinic and you see patients a lot, you know, in Nepal you see a lot of patients, in New Zealand you see a lot of patients, in Canada it's probably not as hard work.
We see a lot of screens.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we spend less time with patients.
Okay, right.
More time with computers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you see a lot of patients, and I think the thing is when you do a lot of clinical medicine, patterns start to appear in front of you, and actually the problems that are coming in were the same problems. And then you realise that actually, as a medical oncologist, you're kind of like the goalkeeper in soccer or the wicket keeper in cricket, and that is by the time the ball gets in the
You are the only person with whom I can talk cricket.
Well, right. Oh, yeah,
because,
cricket.
The other creature does not have any idea.
Yeah, Canadians don't understand cricket. But with football, for example, by the time it gets in the back of the net, everyone looks at the goalie and says, oh, it was your fault. But actually, all the stuff happened before they got there. And oncology is the same. I mean, all the stuff that happens is in the upstream determinants of health in terms of public policy around tobacco, alcohol, food environment, air pollution, water quality, industrial chemicals. It is obesity, active transport. It's then in screening program policy. It's then in access to diagnostics. Then it's in high quality surgery, pathological reporting. And then by the time you get to oncology, actually, it's making incrementally to the overall survival quite limited difference. So we have a huge experiential impact on people, and we certainly help people live longer. And I don't want to downplay that at all. But the thing is that I would have fewer referrals if we got rid of the upstream determinants. And then so when people are turning up with late diagnoses, misdiagnoses, inaccurate diagnoses, incomplete path reports, you start to see that actually all the things you need to help the person in front of you are happening way before they arrive. And if you want to help the person in your clinic today, you had to do something 10 years ago. And so to help the clinic patients, you had to be involved in change. And so that's what got me into it. And we started with small projects, Bish. One of the early projects we did was we analysed our waiting times. Why was it taking so long for people to get in to see an oncologist? And we found out that it was taking between 10 and 14 days for the referral letter to get from the surgeon to the oncologist. And that was because the surgeon saw the patient, they dictated the letter on their dictaphone, on their cassette tape. They'd give the cassette tape to the secretary. It would sit in the secretary's desk for 3 days. She'd then type it up. I'll say she, it was always a she, and then put it back in the surgeon's inbox. The surgeon would be operating or would have an out-of-town clinic, and it would take 3 days for him to sign the letter. And then it would get sent to the internal mail on the post. It would take 2 days to get there, and then we'd triage it. All of a sudden, you've got 10 days. And so we went, and so we did the first online referral system for any department in the hospital, and that got rid of a 10-day wait for patients. You know, small little things like that, saying, how can we improve the experience of patients? Everything we did was anchored in how do we help our patients have a better journey. And then we did synoptic reporting pathologists because we weren't getting all the information we needed. And then we, we're doing what's our intervention rate for stage 3 colon cancer so we can actually improve survival. We do comorbidity management with the geriatric people so we could actually get more people through so we could improve the cure rates. It was all about everything we did was just anchored in the clinic. And the beautiful thing about being a clinician was it told you what the problems were because you saw them every day. And they weren't abstract problems, they were real problems. You just had to look and keep asking yourself, why is this happening? Why? And when you got through the why, you'd see the root cause and you'd start to act on that root cause. And every time you do that, it gets slightly one order a little bit higher. Then you start to solve the small problems. You go, actually, there's something bigger behind that. And then there's something bigger behind that, and there's something bigger behind that. And ultimately, I think that healthcare ultimately is political. And I think we don't like to admit that because we don't like to think of ourselves as political beasts. But actually, how much funding the system gets, the social determinants of health, the prevention policy, it's all political. And I think as clinicians, you can inform that debate in a meaningful way by bringing the experience you see in the clinic and helping the political decision makers understand the impacts of their decisions in a very human context. And that I think can be quite powerful.
No, like it is very, very remarkable and inspirational what you have done with your involvement with, let's say, politics to effect positive changes for cancer patients in a country. And I guess on a lighter note, as you mentioned, you also got married to a politician.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we failed.
Yeah,
that's why our implementation science is not as good.
I married an environmental lawyer. She became a politician later. But no, indeed. Again, the thing with my wife, to talk about her briefly, is that, in fact, my wife was a student politician, so she was student president of the university. I was the medical student president, so we got to meet each other through student politics. And then actually our anchored and shared worldview in general is that actually systems matter. And that actually, as individuals, if we work collectively towards common good, then you can achieve great things. And that's something that we both believe in fundamentally. And we also, I think that's a belief which is rooted quite optimistically, Bish. It's one that actually believes that things can be better. It's a worldview that goes, this is not the best version of ourselves we can be. And whilst there's a lot of chaos and entropy in the world at the moment, and things are going in a negative way in many places, actually, by and large, we can do better and we can achieve more. And I think that by collectivism and by working together, that's what we can do. It's what CSO's doing, what you believe as well, but it's just articulating that in a framework.
Yeah, in fact, that was our motivation to start CSO as well. We wanted to move from academic writing alone to implementing changes. And Chris, let's know you more as a person. You have kids? You have
Yeah. I've got three kids, three beautiful kids. They're 20, 18, and 15. My elder two kids are both doing politics.
Oh, really?
Yeah, inspired by their mother, I think. I think my teenage daughter believes fundamentally that politics is telling people what to do and them following your orders. She's about to learn very quickly that's not the case. And my 15-year-old loves football.
Like football as in soccer?
Yeah.
Okay.
We call it soccer in New Zealand too, but the rest of them calls it football. I thought we're international audience here. We've got to be.
And who is your best friend?
Yeah. Gosh, who is my best friend? Jacinda? Can I say Jacinda? No, you're my best friend. You're my best friend.
I'm your second best friend.
You're my best friend. No, look, who's my best friend? I'm blessed with a number of people in my life who I'm very, very, very blessed with people in my life. Bish, I'm very, very blessed to know you and to count you as my Nepalese brother. I'm very, very blessed to count Chris Booth as a very close friend and mentor, and my very, very, very close friend and collaborator, Di Safati, who I work with for more than a decade on these issues. We're very close as well. So there's a lot of people I've worked with over time who I count as very, very close friends. I feel very lucky with the people in my life.
This thought just came to my mind. Like, do you guys have lots of mountains in Himalayas? How come Edmund Hillary became the first co-climber of Mt Everest with Tenzing Norgay?
Yeah, this is a great question. This is something we should, I should actually know the story better than I do. But I don't actually know why he did it, but I think why did he climb it? Because it was there?
No, like in New Zealand, do you have lots of mountains?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. Yeah. New Zealand is built in a fault line. So New Zealand as a country has got a backbone of mountains down the South Island, and that is literally a fault line where they got pushed up a course. We've got New Zealand's tallest mountain, Aoraki Mount Cook, is there as well.
How high is it?
Oh, let's overdub that later. We'll have the caption. CJ actually gets it right and knows the real answer to that, but I don't know the answer to that.
No, but is it common? Like mountaineering is common in New Zealand?
Well, reasonably. I mean, New Zealanders are largely a hardy bunch, quite a young country. It was the founding document was 1840.
When I think of New Zealand, I only think about the beaches.
The beaches, No, mountains is mountains, beaches, hills. So you've got Alps to ocean within 3 hours, which is quite nice. So it's got both.
So what's the sport that you play?
What sport do I play? Well, do you count chess as a sport? I used to be counted as a sport back at school, so I was the high school chess captain.
Oh, really?
I was high school chess captain and also did debating at high school as well. They were my two sports there. Since leaving the library in my 20s. I had to give up my 20s for my academic studies. I've more recently been doing a sport called CrossFit, which is kind of
I have seen your social media posts.
So I am indeed the world's champion, middle-aged, right-handed intermediate division Southern South Island CrossFit champion of the world.
And I heard that your clinical expertise is also right-sided BRAF positive, but MSI high.
We have microspecialties, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like MSI high. I love MSI high colorectal cancer. It's my favorite.
Only right-sided though.
Yeah, no, I'll treat left-sided MSI high as well.
Okay.
We're generalists in New Zealand. We're generalists as well. So the generalism versus specialism thing is something else that we've been thinking about a bit in New Zealand, that tension between access and expertise. And the more expert you become in an area, that naturally diminishes access for a population.
Yes.
And now with the proliferation of knowledge, like when I started, I'm younger than you, but when I started, it was possible to know all of the key papers in the area. That was possible. Now I don't think it is. I don't think it is anymore.
Not. Yeah.
And so the skill set's different now. So you always have to be on top of it. You have to be using tools to be staying on top of the literature. You have to go to conferences a lot. You have to be reading reviews to stay on top of changes. You have to be engaging with colleagues a lot to ensure that things are happening. You have to be open-minded that you don't know everything, which is different to how it used to be. But with that is a tendency to subspecialize. But the more and more and more you subspecialize, the fewer patients you can actually see, and that does have impacts on waiting times and waiting lists. You do a lot of engagement with LMICs as well, Bashal. The tendency in LMICs for specialisation versus generalism, the tension's there?
There is a lot of tension because for better or worse, whatever high-income countries do, it's looked upon as an example that everyone else should follow. And in high-income countries, many of us are getting super specialized. Like we were half joking when we said we treat only right-sided MSI high, BRAF negative. Like people are getting so concentrated on one is small. And high-income countries can afford to do that, especially in the so-called top cancer centers, right? The big cancer centers where everything is a subspecialty. But that's not the practical reality in low and middle income countries.
It's not the practical reality in most communities, though,
yes.
either.
But the problem is, these oncologists, they go to conferences, and in conference, they hear lectures from the world expert on KRAS mutant pancreas cancer, right? And back home, they are treating pancreas cancer, all GI cancers, gynecological cancers, breast cancers, lung cancers, because they can't afford to say, I'm going to see only pancreas cancer, right? And much less GI cancer. Like there are experts on BRAF or BRCA positive pancreatic cancer, right? So there is a big divide between the reality in low and middle income countries' everyday life versus what they come and get exposed to at conferences. And these world leaders are giving these big talks where they are talking about their work, like their entire career, where they have spent in identifying resistance mechanism to BRCA and PARP inhibitors and so on for one small subset of a disease. And that the problem, let's say one of the issues that I see with practicing in low and middle income countries is we come to conferences, we read papers published in top journals, and we get exposed to these subspecialty knowledge of people practicing in high-income countries. We think that that's the benchmark we should achieve. We think that that's the benchmark to attain. But that's not a reality, even, as you said, even in most centers in high-income countries. One of the most satisfying things for me when I give a talk in low-income country is, when I talk about the limitations of certain trial or the limitations of certain drugs and so on, one of the satisfying things for me is when my low-income countries colleagues come to me and they say that, you know what, until now I was thinking that I was not giving the best treatment for my patient because I did not have access to this and that drug. Because all the conferences I go and all other speakers that I hear, they say this is the best thing ever. Because probably they have spent their whole life investigating that, right? If you have spent your whole life learning resistance to ALK, then ALK is the only thing that you know so well. Like you have invested so much into, so that is the biggest thing for you, right?
Well, I wonder if we're therefore, though, we're platforming the wrong people. I think one of the I went to visit my colleague Bhavna in Raipur recently and spent a day in clinic with her team. I was seeing 40 patients a day. I mean, the number of patients in every day, the clinical experience those doctors have is extraordinary. And the knowledge that they learn from seeing that many people is extraordinary.
Yeah.
And what those doctors in Raipur know also is that fourth line therapy for colon cancer isn't as important as getting more people through the front door.
Yes.
And this is something that we've reflected on a lot.
But when you go to the conferences and when you participate in academic journal articles and debates, they will make you feel like you are an ignorant if you don't know how to treat a random mutation in the NGS report at the fourth line stage.
So our national data sets show that for lung cancer stage 4, about 20% of people get systemic therapy. 20%, about that. And you know, that's national data, so it's not perfect, but even if it's 5% off, still, you're going to save more lives by moving that number from 20% to 30%
exactly
than you are by giving someone a third or fourth generation alkyl ROS inhibitor. And I think once you accept that, you see medicine in a very different way. One of our early explorations was, what are we getting? How many people are getting through for stage 3 colon? You know, I thought we were doing pretty well. In fact, our centre was the most aggressive centre for stage 3 colon in the entire country. We're only getting 60% of people through, and the Aussies were managing to get 70. So we were literally trying to get to 65 or 68% in order to get more people cured. And then that meant we had to do more work with geriatric medicine, more work on multimorbidity to get those numbers up. But actually, you improve the cure rates more by doing that than you do about arguing about 3 months versus 6 months of FOLFOX.
Exactly.
And again, once you accept what really drives shifts the curve, then the conversations fundamentally change. And that's what CSO is about as well, is actually saying what really drives the meaningful change, and accepting it might not always be our drug. But the financial incentives just dominate the conversations. And I worry that the people who you know talk about the minutiae of the mutation subtypes aren't seeing the same number of people in the clinical realities that the doctors in Raipur, you know, in Nepal, and to a lesser extent.
I was talking to a colleague from Albania yesterday. She told me that in Albanian system, osimertinib for EGFR positive lung cancer is not funded yet. But they just funded adjuvant ribociclib for breast cancer. So adjuvant ribociclib for breast cancer, you're talking about 1.6% improvement over 5 years, or maybe even over 7 years. And even the baseline tricks without is like in the range of almost 90. So even if you don't get that drug, 90 out of 100 people will be disease-free over 7 years. And by giving this drug for 2 or 3 extra years, you improve it by less than 2 percentage points. As opposed to giving osimertinib in metastatic lung cancer, which makes a real difference. So they don't have funding for osimertinib, but the adjuvant CDK4/6 inhibitors in breast are approved. So this is just getting our priorities upside down.
Yeah, it is. But then also there's a reason for that. And the reason for that will undoubtedly be a health technology assessment agency that doesn't have the structural expertise to make those rational decisions because they don't have the capacity or the workforce or the training or the skill sets to achieve that. And then the question is not why is Aussie or Ribo being funded? The question is actually why is the health technology assessment agency not funded or functioning properly? And then
about that, we did a paper together about we compared the health technology assessment systems across the G7 countries, and some of the things from New Zealand they were very important and obvious. Like one of my colleagues asked you today during the talk, as in you have a framework that prioritizes the indigenous people and equity, and many other countries don't. But as someone who has experience with the implementation science and changing policy, how much in your context in New Zealand, how much pressure do you feel from the patient advocacy groups? And again, that ties with our discussion about persuasion. And like, how much of these policies do you think is a result of a certain advocacy groups being more active and certain other advocacy groups not being as active or being dormant?
Yeah, I think that's a complex question, and all I can say is I think it's different. There are certainly some advocacy groups that do get things achieved, which in my opinion are not as important. So I was the medical director of the New Zealand Cancer Society. We were very proud of the fact that we were all cancers, all people, and we were very rigorous around our efficacy program, working out where the benefits were going to be and making sure that we were had a balanced advocacy portfolio around what the things that are actually going to help in a cancer control manner. So we were very thoughtful about that. There are a lot of single issue charities out there as well. And the single issue charities exist for a number of reasons. First of all, they exist because people who've had diseases see themselves reflected in that. And also people bring their lived experience and then they go, well, I had this experience, this is what happened to me. I don't want someone else to go through that. And that's actually a place of integrity where people come through with that. As well, because they did have a negative experience. They did have a bad thing happen to them, and they don't want that to happen to someone else. Of course, that's a good thing. But the problem becomes if that voice dominates or is not contextualized. So I engage a lot with patient charities so I help set up the Bowel Cancer Patient Charity, for example. I work with the Cancer Society now as someone in a leadership role within the policy space. The charities will come and lobby me to a certain extent. And you do, try and work with them around helping them understand cancer control priorities too. And the way in which we've done that is through engagement and through open conversations. Now, you're not going to persuade people of everything. That is what it is. But hopefully by having conversations where you can be open and sharing my perspective from a cancer control perspective and the overall thing, and then helping them work with other groups together will help. When I was with the Cancer Society, there was an hilarious example whereby we all said, look, our HTA isn't working. All of the charities need to work together with the health minister to say, here's how we need to improve the HTA framework. And we all need to stick to this script. And so we all agreed. I think it took 40 seconds or maybe 45 seconds before the first charity in the room broke ranks and said, but the real issue is my drug's not funded. And that's what happened. And then at that point in time, the fascinating thing was that was the moment we lost the conversation with the minister. Because actually what happened was the minister went, well, you guys can't agree. I don't have to do anything. And we would have been so much more powerful if we'd stayed united on the core issue. And the politicians got a get out of jail free card. And it wasn't until we came back several years later with a structured answer to it that actually they then wanted to actually fix the problem. So,
Chris, I think Chris B wanted me to release you in an hour. But before I let you go, I wanted to ask a couple of quick questions. First, who is your role model? Like, who do you look up to?
I look up to you. I think, I think your clarity of analysis is fantastic. You always interpret papers.
They haven't paid you anything yet.
Well, I'm looking forward to the free beer and poutine in Montreal. But I think your clarity of analysis, the way in which you stick to data first, you're very principled and you base your analysis on patient values. That's very anchored in human experience, and I respect that enormously. Booth as well, same could be said for him as well. Dice from New Zealand as well, who is, in my view, one of the world's best cancer epidemiologists as well. But I think one of the things that I like to do, Bish, is I think that everyone's got a talent, and part of the challenge is to find it and to learn from it. And I think that it's rare that I meet someone who I don't learn something from. And I try and learn something from someone every single day. And I hope that by learning something from every person every single day, means that tomorrow I'm a little bit less wrong than I am today.
No, that's amazing, and you are my role model. Just so you know,
that's the fashion sense, isn't it? I mean, you've got checks, I've got checks.
He's a fashion icon too. You should see his pants. And we really want to know where you buy these.
It's New Zealand fashion. It's all New Zealand fashion.
The other question I wanted to ask was, what do you most look forward to now? Like, for you, what is the definition of success? Like 5 years from now, or what gets you up every day from the bed?
Yeah, well, again, I've got a fairly long answer to that one, actually. So there's a colleague, there's an exercise I got challenged to do a number of years ago where someone said to me, just write down a piece of paper and write down what you think success would look like and when you'd be satisfied. And I thought about that for a very long time, and I sat with that blank piece of paper for maybe a week.
Mm-hmm.
And then the only word I could finally write when I was absolutely and utterly honest with myself was the word more. And then when I was finally honest with myself about that, and it made me confront the notion that actually I had been trained my whole life based on achievement, success, and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And actually, at the core of that was a hunger that was fundamentally unsatisfiable. And that, to me, I realized when I did that was actually pathological. Because I think the idea of never being able to be satisfied is always going to lead you to a place of misery. So after a while, I sat there and I reframed that and I rethought that and reinterpreted that. And ultimately, the word I wrote down instead was better. And so I changed my thinking.
Wow, that's very profound.
Yeah.
That's just, it looks like a very small change from more to better, but that's very profound.
Yeah. And so then the goal is just to be better tomorrow than I am today, in one way, in a small way, and to turn up and just do something a little bit better, be a little bit kinder, be a little bit nicer.
Wow.
Something like that. And that is fundamentally.
That hit me very hard.
Mm.
From more to better.
Mm.
That is just a change of one word, but it is going to change your world. Wow. Thank you, Chris. That's amazing. Yeah. I feel it a big privilege to know you in person, and thank you for making time today. Thank you, Chris.
So, Bush, thank you so very much.
I love you.
Now, I love you too, my friend. Now, we're going to cut over to your cricketing podcast. We're going to talk cricket.
Yes. Thank you, audience. Bye.
Bye for now.